Welcome to Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. California fast food minimum wage increase and effects. Sponsored by Wendy's, KFC, and Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board. Moderating tonight's broadcast, Fox 26 news anchor Liz Gonzalez.
Well, good evening to everyone and welcome to our Fox 26 Town Hall fast food minimum wage increase. I'm Liz Gonzalez. Over the next hour, we'll be diving into an issue that is bound to impact most Californians in one way or another as the minimum wage increases to $20 an hour for fast food workers. Fox 26 News anchor Monty Torres, my colleague, is here as well. He's been going through your questions and comments on the issue ahead of the town hall. Monty?
Hi, Liz. That's right. Lots of questions and comments have come in, but we would like to know what you, our Fox 26 KMPH news viewers, think who are watching this as well about this issue. You can send questions and comments to newsdesk@kmph.com or through the Fox 26 Facebook page. Please join our conversation. Liz?
All right, thanks so much, Monty. We'll be checking back in with you in a couple of minutes. And we also want to thank our sponsors, Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board, as well as GEM Enterprises, which is, again, which operates Wendy's and KFC locations throughout the Central Valley, for helping to bring you tonight's town hall. Let's do a bit of a roadmap, if you will. Over the next hour, we're going to examine aspects of this issue. How did we get here? What impact will the wage hike have on workers and businesses, both in and out of the restaurant industry? Will the wage hike impact customers? And finally, what is next? It is my privilege to introduce our panel of experts who will be providing insight on this issue over the next hour. We begin with Dr. Enrique Lopez Lira, who is the director of the Low Wage Work Program at the UC Berkeley Labor Center. He is a labor economist who researches how policies affect working families. That work primarily focuses on how policies impact racial and gender equality. Keith Miller has been a Subway franchise owner since 1988 with 3 stores in Northern California. He is the founder of Franchisee Advocacy Consulting, and he is the Director of Public Affairs and Engagement for the American Association of Franchisees and Dealers. Maria Maldonado is the statewide director of the California Fast Food Workers Union, and she is also a member of the newly formed Fast Food Council. Chris Stubner is the executive vice president of GEM Restaurant Management Corporation, and he's been with GEM for 24 years now. GEM has 57 restaurants, including Wendy's locations across the central San Joaquin Valley, Sacramento, and Bay Area, and all KFC locations in Fresno County. And Blake Conzel is the executive director of the Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board. It provides business and training services to Fresno County businesses and residents. Previously, Mr. Conzel served as the executive director of the Silicon Valley Workforce Investment Board, and he actually began his career helping dislocated aerospace workers in Los Angeles County. We thank you all for your time and for joining us here today. Well, it was exactly 6 months ago today, September 28th, that Governor Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 1228 in a room full of supporters who had lobbied for months, if not years, for wage increases specifically for fast food workers.
We fight! We win! You guys all ready?
And you'll see him signing that bill there. According to Service Employees International Union, also known as SEIU, the new law affects 557,000 workers. The new minimum wage applies only to fast food employees who work for spaces that sell food and drinks for immediate consumption. It applies to chains with at least 60 locations nationwide and also creates a fast food council to monitor changes, set new standards for fast food industry, and consider more wage increases in the future. Now, it is worth noting that there are still moving parts to this legislation. In fact, just days ago, another assembly bill was signed to clarify that the law does not apply to fast food restaurants in airports, museums, event centers, theme parks, hotels, and gambling establishments. We did invite the author of this bill, Assemblymember Chris Holden of Pasadena, to join our panel. His office declined our invite. Let's get right to it. Ms. Maldonado, we've got you there with us. Just yesterday, there were reports, in this case out of Sacramento, KCRA, about businesses who still aren't sure, even at this point, just days away, whether this new law applies to them. Specifically, chain ice cream, cinnamon roll, boba, pretzel shops. The state wasn't able to clarify this either. Could you provide some insight on just exactly, who this does apply to? And are you guys still trying to hammer that out? Is that something the council still is trying to sort out?
I think that we have the first meeting with the council, and it was clear that the restaurants that are going to be affected are the ones that have more than 60 restaurants, 60 locations national. Why?
So in this case, if they not, does this regardless of what type of food it is that they serve?
It depends if it's a fast food restaurant. So those are the restaurants that are going to be affected.
That was the point of confusion, was because in this case, if you're picking up an ice cream and just getting it to go, I don't know if that's something that, I know you guys are still meeting on this. I'm hoping that maybe we can get some clarification on that. I want to ask Dr. Lopez Lira, how did we get here? The fight for higher wages wasn't something that happened overnight. It's been clearly years in the making, and you've researched this for years.
Yes, thanks for having me, Liz. Yes, I mean, that's right. How we got to the $20 minimum wage also has been happening for over a year, and the bill was signed into law. Before it took effect, there was a push by the industry to have it on the ballot, and then that prompted both sides to sort of come into negotiations and agree on the current bill. But I think what you're referring to is the fact that ever since the Fight for 15, workers in low-wage industries have been fighting for a wage that they can be self-sufficient and provide for their families. And I think it's important to just give context to this conversation by talking about who fast food workers in California are, because there's also some misconceptions still about who these workers are. So just if you allow me to just very briefly, I want to tell you about who the fast food workers in California are. They're primarily women and people of color. You know, two out of three workers are women, and 6 out of 10 workers are Hispanic. They are adults, not teenagers. In fact, 1 out of 3 workers is 25 or older, and almost 4 in 10 workers have educational attainment beyond high school. They have families of their own, and for almost 1 out of 4 workers, they are the main source of income for their families. And these workers are more likely than other workers to live in poverty. So 40% of workers in fast food are in households below 200% of the poverty level. And almost half of fast food workers rely on one or more public programs to make ends meet. So in effect, taxpayers have been subsidizing the industry for the low wages that are paid. And then 1 in 2 workers are rent burdened, meaning they're paying over 30% of their income on rent. And so these low wages that are paid in the industry lead to lower productivity, burnout, turnover, worker shortages, all of which are very costly for businesses and for the public as well.
Thank you. In fact, you got ahead of me there, because I was planning on asking you more about that in a couple of minutes, but you beat me to the punch. Mr. Miller, while I've got you, you've been part of past talks in Sacramento relating to fast food and laws affecting franchisees. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I've been involved with a lot of the franchisee legislation, not so much on wage stuff. And I think the misconception that we often have is that people forget that while McDonald's or Burger King may report record earnings or profits, that's not necessarily true of your local owner. And while we often hear about the large mega owners, as we call it, mega franchisees, the reality is most franchisees and most brands own 1 to 3 outlets and are kind of your community person. And I think in the process, since the doctor mentioned the process, I think that we feel that we were left out of the process, that everyone looks at, there was 2 sides. There's the corporate side and the worker side. And they're kind of forgetting the third side, which is the franchisee, which is somewhere in between those 2, and also, you know, in their local community trying to make a living.
And I know as you were saying that, Mr. Stubner, you were nodding your head, because as you said, it's not so much the 2 sides or 3 sides of the story, but this is a multi-dimensional issue that we're discussing. What will the minimum wage hike mean for restaurant owners and operators? I know you were telling me that to an extent, this is going to help erode the medium wage sector as well.
Correct. You know, when I look back at the workforce, there was really 3 buckets. What I would say, you had your entry level fast food, movie theaters, high school kids, college kids earning a little extra money to go to school. Then you had the what I would say a medium bracket back then was $20 to maybe $60 an hour jobs, which was your manufacturing, factory workers, your call centers. And then to me, you go up to your professionals. Well, you know, my question would go back to the state legislature. Why did they chase off all that medium jobs? You know, if you had a call center or a factory and you can uproot and leave California, you left. And so now we're being attacked to make up that medium income now, because all those jobs are gone. And so that's what they're attacking the fast food, because now they're saying now we've got to be that medium income.
When we pass fast food restaurants around the valley, we see the signs. We still see signs, help wanted. We heard a lot about a worker shortage during the pandemic. Mr. Consul, are we still seeing that?
I think that there's issues for employers in finding qualified employees, and overall employment rates have returned to pre-pandemic levels. So in Fresno County, the overall civilian employment rate is actually higher than it was pre-pandemic in February of 2020. And then in the breakout data for restaurants, that includes more than just quick service, but also regular restaurants, the employment data is up to pre-COVID, actually a little bit beyond pre-COVID numbers. But I'll tell you anecdotally, somebody who works, our office works with hundreds of businesses every day, every week. Employers are having trouble finding qualified workers and are trying to dream up ingenious ways to get people to apply.
We were talking about the fast food industry, and like you mentioned, in some respects that used to be a starter job for a lot of generations. You had students, you had young adults. Are we still finding that that's the case?
I think it is. I think in Fresno County what we have is maybe different from other parts of the state in that people frequently focus on those who are unemployed. But in Fresno County we have a large group of people who are underemployed.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, I can wait if you like.
Yeah,
okay.
We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. If I can bring Ms. Maldonado back into the conversation, we were talking again about people seeing these fast food jobs as starter jobs, but a lot of people, this is what they use to support their families. Tell me about that as a primary job.
Yes, most of the workers are women, and also remember, some young kids cannot be cooks. It's their first job. They are not allowed to work in certain hours because they gonna go against the law. Like so that's why they prefer to be working to employ adults, and most of the times are women of color, immigrants. Many times they don't know about their rights, so they are a perfect target to be abused, to be victims of wage theft or retaliation when they speak up. So I disagree. Like maybe in Fresno is an exemption, but in different cities in California, I've been working 9 years as an organizer and everywhere. And we see that it's mostly women of color.
She is certainly one that is drawing strong opinions. We previewed our town hall days ago on Facebook asking what you thought about the upcoming wage hike. Let's check in with Monty for more on that. Monty?
That's right, Liz. We have had a big response in the days leading up to tonight's town hall with people sending in their questions or comments all over the board. Here's some. Amanda writes, and I think she's writing this as a fast food worker. She didn't specify, but it sounds like it. She writes, quote, I've had burgers thrown in my face, drive-through windows shattered on me, and even pregnant was threatened on me. I see no issue with it. Meanwhile, Laura writes, as a barista who was affected by this, I never agreed to this nor asked for it. And yes, I have worked in fast food previously and never wanted this to happen. And to those watching, we're asking, please join the conversation. Send your questions and comments to newsdesk@kmph.com or through the FOX26 Facebook page. Liz?
Okay, any of our panelists want to react to any of that?
Well, I would just say to Ms. Maldonado, I respectfully disagree with her. Instead of, the unions trying to force their way into fast food, there are so many protections in the state of California. If you have a wage and hour issue, you've got the Department of Labor, you've got the Labor Commissioner's Office, you have the EEOC, you've got OSHA, you've got the Health Department. If you have any issues in the restaurant, There are protections today without joining a union or being forced into a union. So I would say if there's anybody that feels that they're, being harassed or their wages, you go to those departments. They can resolve those issues without burdening the employer with a union.
Are you finding, Ms. Maldonado, I'll let you have, again, coming back to you, have you found that the state has been responsive when it comes to concerns like this?
Hundreds of complaints, especially during COVID, before COVID, after COVID. Workers don't know about their rights when we talk to them, and they don't know that they are able to take sick leave, that it's illegal to retaliate them when they cut their hours because they take sick leave, when they don't want to work when it's leaking, when it's raining, and they have to work under these conditions, when the air conditioner is broken and the manager says that it's the menopause. So we have filed hundreds of complaints, and I think that we have some response from OSHA. They don't have enough capacity to send inspectors to the stores, but it's really difficult for the workers to go and participate on a strike, face retaliation, because the employers don't choose to do the right thing. I respect that you disagree with me, but in my opinion, workers are forcing to do whatever it takes to change the industry because the employers don't want to listen.
We're in the middle. There's dysfunction from Sacramento. All right, it is time for a break. Coming up, we're going to dive more into the impact of the minimum wage hike on fast food establishments. Some have already taken drastic measures ahead of Monday. But first, viewers sound off on the increase.
I think it's good for them, for the restaurant workers, they're going to get paid more, but I do think it's just going to up everything else, our living costs, probably housing, for sure food and gas, like it's already been going up. And I think since they're only raising, minimum wage for one industry, it's not fair to everybody because not everybody's in that industry.
You're watching Fox 26's Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. California fast food minimum wage increase in effects. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 26's Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. California fast food minimum wage increase and effects.
When they need you the most is when they want you, but and now it looks like now that they can save, $3, they want to get rid of the driver instead of having some compassion and just say, hey, you know what? We'll pay you guys the extra $2 or whatever, $3.
Minimum wage was going up, but I didn't think it was going to affect us that drastically to where they're letting all drivers in California go. What are we going to do? In today's age and economy, unemployment doesn't go that far.
And that right there was the uncertainty that we heard from Pizza Hut drivers late last year as they learned that they were losing their jobs. 2 Pizza Hut franchise operators with hundreds of stores across California laid off all delivery drivers, going with app-based delivery services instead, ahead of the minimum wage increase. That's about 1,200 people out of a job. Welcome back to our Fox 26 Town Hall on fast food minimum wage increase. I'm Liz Gonzalez. The workers we heard from were particularly upset, saying they believe corporations can't afford the minimum wage hike. After all, Yum Brands, which owns Pizza Hut, KFC, Taco Bell, and the Habit Burger Grill, earned $24 billion in just digital sales alone in 2022. Now, it's an argument that Dylan Savory, the executive director of Central Labor Council, also made. I spoke with him this morning.
Most of the corporate giants in the world that are multi-billion-dollar profiting companies, they have so much attention towards their shareholders and so little towards their workers. And we as taxpayers, me, you, everybody watching this right now, we're subsidizing the healthcare and the just basic family needs for public assistance for workers that are under the poverty line, and that includes fast food workers that are just getting ready to get this raise.
We do want to clarify, though, there is a difference between the corporation and the franchisee. Mr. Miller, if you can please explain that to us. You were telling me as a franchisee, we said it before, you feel stuck in the middle. You don't necessarily have a large amount of locations, and all too often your hands are tied since you still have to honor the deals and specials from Subway, and now you've got the higher wages. Go for it.
Well, and I think that's one of the big points is, again, most of franchisees aren't this mega billion-dollar corporation. And yeah, Subway, for example, in my case, may be worth billions. I'm certainly not worth billions, and we have to make our business work. And what's even more frustrating over time, the way this is working out, is this minimum wage increase will actually profit the big corporations because they're not the ones paying the wage. If I have to raise my sandwich prices $1, Subway takes 8% royalties and 4.5% advertising. They'll get 12 cents more, 12.5 cents more, yet they're not paying any of the labor. McDonald's and Jack in the Box actually have rent as a percentage of their revenue. So if they raise the price of a hamburger $1, their franchise company is actually getting 18 to 20 cents more. So unless we completely price ourselves out of the market and consumers can no longer afford it, all the squeeze is hitting the franchisees, and the corporations are actually profiting out of this. And look, I want to make it clear, none of us, especially small owners who live in our communities, this is not a fight between us as franchisees and our workers. We want our workers to stay. We want to treat them well. I'm disgusted by some of the comments I've already heard on this show of the treatment that workers get. It's totally unacceptable, and that should not be a problem. And most of us, I hope, don't act that way. But I think, again, we are kind of the unrepresented in this because people drive by, see the sign, and look at this mega corporation and forget, in most cases, it's the local owner, which in a sense, the environment is actually driving the local owner out, and now you're having to have people own 100 outlets to make it make sense, as opposed to making a living off the 2 to 3 outlets.
Mr. Stubner, I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And if you look back at the history, and this all started with AB 257, was the first legislation, but it included the joint employer rule, which, for those who don't know, that would have brought the corporations in. So if you had a wage and hour claim, they could also go after
liability,
the big corporations, the deep pockets. So that was then all the big corporations got together and they funded a signature gathering, and it was actually placed on the ballot for November of this year. So then that's when the AB 1228 came out, and with the joint employer kind of moved out of it, and it was then just attacking the franchisees. And when you look at the big picture is, you're looking at In-N-Out, Starbucks, Panda, Chipotle, Habit, those are all corporate owned, corporate run stores. So the other 70% of us, as Mr. Miller said, are locally owned. I graduated Bullard High School, went to Fresno City College. My daughters graduated from Buchanan, so we're here local. We don't have the millions of dollars or billions. And I think it all started, I saw the interview with Mary Kay Henry, which is the president of the SEIU, and she came out finally and answered the reporter's question and said the reason why they made this push was because the people were telling her they're tired of seeing the multi-million-dollar salaries, the mansions, the corporate jets. We don't have that. I drive a used car. We don't have, I've lived in my same house for 20 years. We don't have mansions, or we're not millionaires. We offer all of our employees benefits, 401k with a match. We offer them all kinds of benefits 5 days a week. So we take care of our employees. I think of them as family. They're my family, and when one of them hurts, I hurt.
Ms. Maldonado, I'm going to bring you in because we were talking about, again, so much of the focus has been put on corporations, but how much have franchisees had a voice, a seat at the table, if you will, in these negotiations?
And I appreciate the comments from Mr. Miller in saying that they care about the workers, and the workers care about their employers. They are not against the employer. They need to be creative and probably stand up against the corporations, because the workers cannot survive with 16 or 16.50 per hour. This steak is so expensive, and as I said, like if the franchises are struggling, but the workers are having more difficult time to provide for their families. So my understanding is the vast majority of the impacted fast food chains are part of the big five, the biggest fast food corporations. So the franchises, again, like if they are struggling, they shouldn't go against the workers, even though you are not trying, but they cannot survive with 16.
Okay. Mr. Stubner, we were talking briefly, if you could touch on this. It's not just, again, the increase to your line workers, but because of this, now you're going to have to increase the pay also for management, assistant managers.
Yeah, it's not just 20. It's 20 plus workers' comp goes up because it's based on payroll dollars. Your taxes that we pay go up. And then we have to raise what we have shift managers, some have assistants, or you have general managers in the restaurant level. Well, you've got to raise their wages too. So it's not just going to 20. It's all those other wages that are going to go up as well.
Monty, let's check back in with you and see what our viewers have had to say on this hot topic, if you will. Monty?
All right, Liz, we have had hundreds of comments on this topic. Joe writes, for example, can't wait. We deserve it. As long as people are too lazy to cook, fast food ain't going anywhere. Work one day in it and you will agree we deserve way more. Tarina writes, as a business owner, when you're made to pay higher wages, then you'll give less hours per week to your employees. The employee will actually be gaining nothing. And James writes, how will minimum wage going up help the workers earning it? Won't it shorten their workday? Please keep those questions and comments coming. Just send them to newsdesk@kmph.com or through the Fox 26 Facebook page. Liz?
All right, thanks so much, Monty. I'm going to piggyback on those last two comments, Mr. Conzo. Leading up to tonight, we talked about the term underemployment, which has not been talked about very much, and I think it deserves to be talked about. What is it, and how big of a concern should this be for workers?
So everybody knows when someone's unemployed, you don't have a job, but in Fresno County, underemployment is almost as serious a problem. It's present when the economy's good and the economy's bad. Underemployment is defined as an individual who is working multiple part-time jobs, normally in the service sector, in an effort to gain a living wage for themselves or their families. And so this is a pronounced issue for the Valley. It's a pronounced issue for Fresno County. We live in a community in which we don't have the number or the variety of industry sectors that occur in Southern California or up north. And so we have to look for innovative ways to help people to get access to careers that can, in a sense, liberate them from that underemployment.
Ms. Maldonado, you are on the council. Has that been something that perhaps, is there work behind the scenes to make sure that workers are scheduled for a certain minimum of hours, because again, that is the concern, is if they have to pay more. Not necessarily saying either any of our participants will be considering this, but there could be some that could be considering cutting their workers' hours in order to still reach a certain level of spending when it comes to wages.
We just had the first meeting 3 weeks ago, and the workers are really excited about to have a seat at the table and talk about those issues. They are the experts. They are the ones that are struggling, and they are the first time that they're gonna have the opportunity to talk to their employers and come with solutions. But yeah, of course, one of the main things, the main issues is the minimum wage going up. Probably they're gonna face retaliation, cutting their hours. And we need to protect their hours because they are families that they're gonna suffer if that happen. But we hope that it doesn't happen. When the minimum wage went up to $15, also businesses, they were saying they're gonna go broke, and it didn't happen.
Okay, we're going to be going over to our next break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what this increase in wages for fast food workers will mean for customers and beyond. And as we go to break, here's more of what some of you had to say on this issue leading up to tonight.
It's already happening. I mean, you see how expensive things have gotten. I mean, as far as you can go to Taco Bell now and spend $30 there and still kind of be like, whoa, what did I even get? Now that these restaurant workers are going to get this boost in pay, things is just going to keep on trickling, because everything around it will start to increase as well. I just think that I think some of those fast food jobs are meant to be stepping stones while you're going to school, while you're doing stuff like that. They're not typically meant to be careers.
You're watching Fox 26's Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. California fast food minimum wage increase in effects. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 26's Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. California fast food minimum wage increase and effects.
Well, welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm Liz Gonzalez. We're having this discussion regarding the upcoming fast food wage increase. When Governor Gavin Newsom signed the FAST bill, as it's known, he was asked about fast food eateries raising prices to keep up with higher wages. He said people worried about the same thing when the minimum wage was raised to $15 an hour.
That was a hell of an accomplishment. And they said the exact same thing. And it didn't happen. So I've heard that rhetoric before.
Except this time, some restaurants already have. McDonald's was among the first. Chipotle later joined McDonald's franchises in raising prices before year's end. Chipotle only said that it's raised prices somewhere between the, quote, mid to high single digits. McDonald's wouldn't say how much. Let's talk about how the higher minimum wage will affect fast food customers and people in other industries. Before I get to that, Dr. Lopez Lira, I wanted to check in with you because we were talking about corporations, and I know that you've done research when it comes to corporations and profits and whether corporations can absorb some of these costs. Again, we're talking the big five, if you will, that we've heard about earlier tonight.
Yes, Liz, thank you. Good question. So the governor is right. The research shows that when there's for example, a dollar increase in the minimum wage, prices rise very little, almost minimal. So my colleague Michael Reich at UC Berkeley did a study with his co-authors, and they looked at California and New York, the minimum wage increases leading up to $15 an hour from 2013 to 2022, and they found that McDonald's raised prices by 12 cents for every dollar increase in the minimum wage. And so the evidence is not there that prices will rise one-to-one. You mentioned about raising prices recently, but I would argue that those were excuses to raise prices from those corporations. Yum brands, they've been raising prices 11% per year for the last 7 years, and has nothing to do with the $20 minimum wage bill. You also mentioned about one of your viewers mentioned about the drivers and Domino's or Pizza Hut. I can't remember which one it was, but those franchise or those establishments were already transitioning to the platform deliveries way before this, and part of their reason for fully transitioning to platforms is because they just couldn't find enough drivers for their needs. So I think there's a lot here of after, therefore, because of it. That's not really true. The actions taken by those large corporations almost never have anything to do with these kind of wage policies. The other thing I would mention as well is that we agree with Mr. Miller that franchisees are in a tough spot here, and I think that's why we're seeing these kind of sectoral policies. So we're seeing it in fast food, we're seeing it in healthcare in California as well. And when the more fissured the relationship is between the corporations and the franchisees and the workers, it's really hard for workers to organize in a way that's effective. And so you create this kind of sectoral agreements that are more common in Europe than the US. But there is a power dynamic here where the franchisors, the corporations, make a lot of the decisions, and the franchisees have very limited places where they can take action. But the last point I'll mention is there was a very recent paper by the Roosevelt Institute, and they looked also at the fact that the profit margins from the big corporations and fast food are more than enough to absorb the minimum wage here. And one last point for context is that I was looking at Fresno data for Fresno, and if anybody of your viewers can do this, if any of your viewers can go to Google and just type average fast food wage in Fresno, and you'll see that it's either at or close to $20 an hour already. So we're not talking about a full increase from 16 to 20 for many of these establishments. They're already having to pay close to the $20 to attract the workers that they need.
Competition for labor. Mr. Stubner, we were talking ahead of this, and you were saying that you're looking at the calendar and trying to figure out, okay, first of all, it's not easy for you to want to raise prices on some of your items. But clearly, when you're taking into account that everybody's paying more for raw items, raw ingredients as well, tell me about what goes into thinking about how much you have to raise them. How do you approach raising the prices for customers?
Well, and I'll go back to what they were saying. First of all, the big corporations, the big five, they don't set your prices. That's illegal. So the franchisees set their prices. They set their prices on corporate stores, but not franchisees. So when he was talking about Yum at 11%, well, Yum owns very, very small, maybe a couple, 300 stores total. So I don't know where he got his numbers from. And when you're looking at the fast food workers, we are entry level. If you were to add in management, yes, it is closer to 20 maybe. anyway, so when we're looking at pricing, you know, we have to be very strategic, because they talked about earlier, you know, when we went to 15, you're right, there wasn't much squawk and we did survive, but that was an incremental increase. That we went from 10 to 15 over a 5-year period. We're going up 25% in one day. We're going from 16 to 20 in one day. If it had been tiered in where we, you know, can absorb, we look at probably 2 to 3% for every dollar increase. So if we were to raise our prices based on minimum wage, we would have anywhere from a 10 to 15% price increase, which would hurt our guest. So when I'm looking at pricing, you know, we're trying to also look internally, can we cut? But when you get your PG&E tells you you're going to have a 30% increase, well, that's also us. You know, when your waste delivery says we're going to have to increase the cost of picking up your garbage, that's us too. So we have all those costs that we have to figure in. And then we have to buy through the supply chain. So again, if those costs go up, ours goes up. Gasoline goes up. The delivery trucks that come in, we get added fuel surcharges to our deliveries. So it's more than just, you know, have a dartboard, throw it, hit a number. But we haven't raised our prices yet this year. We're looking April 1, and I'm trying to be very strategic, because we also have to think of the value guest. There are people that aren't going to be making the $20 an hour, as I think one of your commercials showed. They'll also be making 16. So the person at the gas station, the movie theater, they're going to make 16. We're going to be at 20. So we have to raise our prices based on 20, but they're still making 16. So we have to be very careful with that in our pricing.
Dr. Lopez Lira, my executive producer, said, I see him shaking his head. I'm not sure what it was that you disagreed with, so I want to check in with you.
Well, no, the gentleman said that I was talking about management jobs, and I wasn't. The way we define it, fast food workers in all our studies are cooks and fast food line personnel. So we're not looking at management salaries there. You asked me about the corporation, so I was mentioning that's a fact that for the last 7 quarters, Yum Brands has raised prices in double digits. That's out there in data from Yum. So I wasn't saying that the franchisees were raising the prices. You asked about the big corporations, and I was giving you that number. So I just wanted to clarify that record. The other thing I want to mention is that all the research out there shows that there is some vertical spillovers. When the minimum wage is raised, establishments have to raise the wages of those that are near or close to the new minimum wage. But those spillover effects really dwindle the further you go out in the wage distribution, and all the reputable studies show that you're talking about $3 above the minimum wage. So we would expect folks making around $23 an hour, between 20 and 23, to see some kind of bump. But it's not a one-to-one bump either. It's some percentage of the wage bump. And even if you look at, even if you assume that everybody's getting paid $16 an hour, which is not true, even in Fresno for cooks and line workers, the actual increase of this is going to be in the single digits, between 5 and 9% bump, because folks are already making more than 16. So then when you look at the research, it shows that you're looking at a very small increase in prices coming from the increase in labor, because labor is only about 30 or less % of operating costs.
Bottom line is start saving that money, because it's going to cost you a little bit more regardless of where you go. A big question for so many people, in fact, somebody just texted me this and I got on my phone. Mr. Consul, I'll ask you this. Are we forecasting other industries that may be forced to pay more to hold on to their workforce? Because much like we saw the big exodus from agricultural work to the construction sector, are we expecting that? Is that a possibility?
No, it's going to happen. There's a ripple effect that'll happen. So for businesses that aren't included in this minimum wage increase, in order to keep their employees or to attract new employees, it will also have to affect their wages, because if you were a worker in the service sector and you could earn $20 an hour at a fast food restaurant, why would you go work someplace else for 16? So I think there will be definitely a ripple effect in the economy that will force those employers to also raise their wages.
Okay, we're going to check back in with Monty one more time to see what you have to say about this. Monty?
Well, Liz, people are watching, and your viewers have some of the same comments and concerns as I hear being expressed by your guest and by you. Amanda writes, I'll save my money for my expensive groceries. Oh, and get ready for everything to go up, too. You can't increase the wage without everything else following suit. And again, thank you for that question. And you can also still be a part of the conversation just by sending your comments and questions to newsdesk@kmph.com or through our Fox 26 Facebook page. Liz?
All right, Monty, we're getting ready to go to break, but before we do that, we were talking about other industries being affected. Other restaurants are definitely going to be affected by this. There have been sit-down restaurant owners who've shared concerns over whether they're going to lose workers or even potential workers to fast food restaurants included in the hike. Raul Gutierrez is the owner of Papi's Mex Grill. He's also with the Fresno chapter of the California Restaurant Association. He told us that he's afraid that smaller restaurants could have a tougher time hiring. And that pretty much goes in line with what you were saying.
I mean, it just makes sense if you're especially for performing similar work, and you could earn $4 an hour more by going to a different employer. Who amongst us wouldn't do that?
Yeah, in fact, here's a sound from him that we got a while back.
When you have somebody that wants to apply for work, they're gonna, think twice between even applying at your restaurant, because they're gonna be like, I get paid more to go work at McDonald's.
That's even after the minimum wage went up to $16 an hour in January. So people are taking note, and again, it'll be far beyond just the fast food industry that'll be affected by this. It's time for another break. When we come back, we're going to look at what's next for the fast food industry and its workers. What role could automation play? And could California be setting a trend for other states? Let's hear from some of our viewers, though, that are torn when it comes to this upcoming wage hike.
In some cases, I would say it's good for the person nowadays that even wants to really work and have a job and will pay the price to get out there and hustle. And they are ones that we care about also.
But then again, I feel sorry for a lot of the businesses that are hiring people, and when the wages go up, then it makes it hard for them to be able to afford to keep all their help, because it is more expensive and they only have so much to work with to pay people. So it's kind of both ways. I feel sorry for people that own business that have to pay this, but I also feel sorry for the people that are working because they need it. So it's like a no-win situation.
You're watching Fox 26's Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. California fast food minimum wage increase in effects. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 26's Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. California fast food minimum wage increase and effects.
The future happens here first. California. We're America's coming attraction.
What you have done is set in motion something that's going to reverberate around the entire country.
And that right there was the author of the bill that set this in motion. It's no secret that sometimes what California does, others will follow. Dr. Lopez Lita, could we see workers in other states perhaps organize to also raise the minimum wage for fast food workers? Does their uphill battle, and I'm wondering, how does their uphill battle stack up considering California's minimum wage is now at $16 an hour?
Good question. So it depends which states you're talking about. I mean, California has one of the highest minimum wages, but we're not the highest. Washington, I believe, is higher than us, and other places like New York and have high minimum wages as well. But look, there's unprecedented support for workers from the public. The public support for unions is at its highest level since the 60s. And you saw that through all the labor movements over since the pandemic. Last summer was called Labor Summer. It went on into Labor Fall. And what you're seeing is workers just organizing and not necessarily with unions. You saw that in Starbucks, just workers on their own started organizing. It's very real that other states will follow because workers are understanding that what they teach you in Economics 101 is not true, right? The model we teach in Economics 101 is a very basic, outdated model that assumes that firms don't have the power to set price, and it's a perfectly competitive system when it's not. It's actually, there's a lot of wage setting power that the industry has. And the minimum wage is one way to counter that power. And the other way is for workers to organize and tip the scale of power back to workers, so we can, it's very likely that we'll see this happening in other parts of the country because they're also dealing with the same issues of very precarious employment since the pandemic, not being able to sustain themselves and their families. The living wage is nowhere near what the minimum wage is. So yes, we can definitely see this happening somewhere else.
Oh, same question for you, since of course you are the boots on the ground, so to speak. Are you hearing from people in other states that they're getting ready for the same battle, if you will? Ms. Maldonado, let me see if we can take, I see Mr. Miller, but there we go. There's Ms. Maldonado.
Yes, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I asked if are you hearing about this possibility of other states getting ready or really keeping an eye on this, and workers in other states possibly wanting to mobilize as well?
Hopefully they are learning to fight for their families. We see here that it's not only the workers affected. As I said, there are people of color, women supporting their families. And when I was mentioning about $15, I mentioned that because we see that employers refuse to be on the shoes of the workers, right? There are some good actors, but there are many that don't appreciate the workers, and they have to fight for themselves and for their families. And in other states, they might follow.
Do you find the franchisees from out of state, I know you were just at a conference out of state, are you finding that they're really asking and picking your brain saying, okay, tell us what's happening because we think it could be coming our way as well?
Well, of course, they're worried about it. And I think that was one of the things that I keep hearing from people as the doctor mentioned, the sectoral bargaining position of segmenting out fast food workers and really targeting franchises, even though In-N-Out Burger and Chipotle aren't franchises. That, they were surprised with that. And that's what they're more worried about, I believe. Look, we're all trying to figure this out, and we don't know where it's going to go. I believe the doctor also said the wages are about 30%, and that's correct. It's about 25 to 30%. So you factor that in. But as was also mentioned, everything else is going up. The PG&E has been skyrocketing. Rents continue to go up. The food distribution systems go up either from fuel surcharges or from franchisors, in a sense, tapping into the supply chain to get rebates or kickbacks. So there's a lot going on. And I think the frustrating part is if I raise my prices 10%, my revenue's probably only going to go up about 2 to 4% at best. And so it's hard to calculate and hard to figure out where things are going. And we really can't cut, the talk of we're going to cut staff and cut hours. I think most of us have become pretty darn efficient as the wages have stepped up to $15, that we really don't have a lot of extra labor standing around. So I don't think we can cut labor and still stay open. So again, I think we're all, it is what it is. Here we are, and we're all going to try to figure it out and make it work.
I saw you nodding.
Yes, I agree. And I just, share to our guests that, we're part of the community. We're local, as Mr. Miller said. We're the ones that sponsor your school events, your back to school nights, your fundraisers for your Little League team. That's what locally owned is. And I hate when they keep talking about the corporations, because that's not who's going to be hurt. We're going to be hurt because the real winners is the SEIU, who's getting their foot in the door, government, because they're going to get immediate bump in payroll taxes and sales tax, and then our franchisors, because they're, as Mr. Miller said, they're going to get more in their royalties and national advertising fees, because that's all based on payroll. So I just want the guests to know, our people to know, we will continue taking care of our employees. We are not cutting any jobs. We're not putting kiosk in every restaurant. We're not taking the front registers out. We will have a cashier at that front register, because we want to serve our guest. That's so important to us, and it's through our founder, Joe Desmond here in Fresno. We're going to continue that. We're going to take care of our people.
I'm going to interrupt you there for a quick second, because you talked about kiosks. A lot of people are worried, okay, is that going to be the wave of the future? Are we going to be seeing kiosks everywhere? I mean, at some point, we've got El Pollo Loco that told its investors it's going to start automating its salsa making. That was something that they told their investors. Even the Wall Street Journal is reporting Jack in the Box is testing fryer robots to rely on fewer employees.
Yes. Well, I shared with you, I was down in Los Angeles for a meeting, and there was a restaurant in Pasadena, it's robotic flippy burger or something, I don't know what the name, and it's all robotic. Everything. You walk in, you order your kiosk, a robot brings it out, it's all robotic. Well, we're not going to go that way, because I believe in the human touch. I always think about, who would I want helping my mother? And do I want her to try and figure out how to do a kiosk and push the buttons? No.
Okay.
But people do love them.
I'm going to stop you right there, because I'm being told we've got about a minute and a half left. And if I could just quickly have everybody just go around and just have a final say. We'll start with you, Ms. Maldonado. Ladies first, please.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I just want to say that for some businesses, it might be complicated, but they can stand up to the corporations, right? Not to take it on the workers. They are celebrating that $20 is going to help their families. It's not for luxury. It's just to put food on the table. Let's not forget that they struggle every day to support their families.
Mr. Miller, I'm going to check in with you as well.
Well, I think, as was stated, we're going to try our best to keep the human touch. Everyone talks about kiosks and things, and those have huge investments, and most of us can't afford those huge investments, and it takes a while to pay off. But I guess it's an experiment, and we're going to see where it ends up.
Mr. Lopez Lira, I'm going to check in with you again. We've got about 15 seconds with you. My apologies.
Just thank you for having me, and for being able to provide some research and that can help folks get informed.
Thank you, Mr. Consul.
I would just share that to the extent that any workers are affected by this, where they were losing their jobs, that the Workforce Board, Fresno Workforce Board, is prepared to assist them to find new employment or training leading to new employment.
Okay. And Mr. Stuber.
I just want to thank KMPH for helping to get this word out, because it seems like you only hear one side of the story in the media. And so it's great that you're also hearing the other side and our side of the story. So I want to thank you and thank KMPH here. Great partnership.
Something that affects everybody, regardless of whether you work in fast food or you're a customer of fast food. I know I'm a customer of fast food, but I mean, it affects everybody. As we said, other industries as well. And we will see how that impact goes. Well, I want to thank you again so much for joining us. I want to thank you as well. This will do it for us tonight. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board, as well as GEM Enterprises, for helping to bring you tonight's town hall. Hope you gained something out of it, some insight that was useful to really help shape your views. Well, join us tonight for Fox 26 News at 10 and tomorrow morning on Great Day. From all of us here at Fox 26 News, thank you and good night.
Thank you for joining Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. California fast food minimum